Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positivity here on the show. And with me right now is one of the great announcers, managers, personalities, and pro wrestlers of all time. Former WWE superstar and owner and head trainer of the Three Legacies Wrestling Academy, the one, the only, Ricardo Rodriguez.
You're hired. You are hired, sir. No, thank you. I appreciate it for you inviting me and then having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So you're from Los Angeles, California, man. West Coast,
Oh
Hollywood.
yeah. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, Burbank originally. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley most of my life. I got to spend a little bit of time in San Diego as well, and then West Coast, man, West Coast. That West Coast living is always gonna be home.
It's just a different vibe, man. I
It
mean,
is. It really
everywhere you
is.
go, it's a different place. I mean, I'm from Nashville, Music City, USA. So a lot of people kind of go to Nashville for tourism, but LA has been a tourist hub for decades. So many
Oh yeah.
people have visited Los Angeles, and wrestling's pretty hot there too, I gotta say. I mean, several people have come through there. Several WrestleManias have been held there. SummerSlams have been held there. But growing up in Los Angeles, I mean, you got some pretty good wrestling on TV.
Oh yeah, growing up, obviously we had lucha libre at the Auditorium, at the Coliseum. We had wrestling all over the place, and I was very grateful that when I was coming up, I was in not same group, but I was in the same time frame as guys, like the Young Bucks, obviously, the Young Bucks, Scorpio Sky, Joey Ryan were at the time. So many T.J. Perkins, Rocky Romero. Yeah, so many. Daniel Bryan was at the dojo, at the Loki dojo for a little while. Samoa Joe, Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels. John Cena went through LA as well too at the UPW.
Yeah.
So many of those guys, and it's bred so many talented individuals that have obviously gone on to do such incredible things. Of course, yours truly, Ricardo Rodriguez as well. But yeah, man, the West Coast is always gonna be home. Southern California, In-N-Out Burger, all of that, Del Taco and Jack in the Box,
Yeah, man.
tacos de carne asada, man,
Mm-hmm.
actual Mexican food.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, it's always gonna be home.
Absolutely. So wrestling, I mean, tell me about like what got you hooked into it, because everybody's got their story. They either watched it as kids or just fell into it. What was your story? What got you into professional wrestling?
I started watching lucha libre first when I was a kid. Being in Mexico with all of us, all our cousins and our
Mm-hmm.
grandpa were watching.
Mm-hmm.
The living room watching lucha libre. Atlantis, Octagon, Máscara Sagrada, Ultimo Dragon, so many Felino, Tinieblas, so many amazing, talented luchadors. And that's what I grew up on. And then when I came back to the US, I kind of fell out of it for a little while. I
Sure.
went to soccer, and then that was like my thing. And then I didn't fall back into it until much later, until like almost after high school. Some of my friends were into it, and I mean, at the time, I was like, man, this is dumb, because I had fallen out of it. I was like, this is not real. This is fake. All that whole mentality. This is
Mm-hmm.
stupid. And then I had a friend, a high school friend, who used to have a pool, and he was the only kid, only one of my friends who had a pool, and he had a diving board. So we would always go to his house and then play on the pool in the pool with the diving board. And then he had this thing. It was called the black box. So the black box was this thing that you used to get where you can connect it and then not legally watch pay-per-views. Um, so we were always at his house, and then he was a big wrestling fan. So he would have these like pay-per-view parties, watch parties, but I didn't care about the wrestling. I just wanted to go play with the in the pool and then the diving board. And then his sister was cute, so that was another reason why I would even go. Um, Rafael Romero, thank you for the invites.
Yeah.
And then his sister Maritza. I don't know why that just popped up in my head. But yeah. So then from there, one day we were watching one of the WWE pay-per-views. WWE, yeah, it was WWE at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and I just fell into it and I loved it. And I remember watching WrestleMania 17 and that match, the TLC match with the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys. Um, and there was that one moment where Jeff Hardy was hanging from the titles and then Edge speared him. What's that? 16, 17.
Was
Um,
17.
yeah, and then Edge speared him from the titles, and then that was it. I got hooked from there.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, that was my moment.
I mean, that was a huge pay per view in itself because you got the TLC match, you got Taker and Triple H, you got Austin and Rock. Like, it was a stacked
Mhm.
card. I mean, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
huge.
And then that became a thing. I started watching it from there, and then after high school, I got really into it, and I started doing the whole backyard wrestling with our friends, and um, eventually I went and I got trained. There's a whole long story behind it, but just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
clip.
please, please.
Um,
Absolutely.
and then I went and got trained, and it just kind of went from there. I was training for X amount of time, and I was doing training 5 days a week, different places after a while, and eventually I was wrestling Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for a whole year, 2 years straight, and then eventually I got my big break. I started going out to Mexico. I was traveling over to Europe. I was very thankful that I got to wrestle in Germany, and then the promoter was super super awesome, and even though I paid for my way there, that was the only time I ever really paid for a flight to go somewhere. Because
Hmm.
then from there, I made connections, and I think I did well because he kept bringing me back. So I'll forever be always grateful for DWA in Germany, because they were the first international promotion that gave me an opportunity, and then I mean I met people from there, and it just became a thing. And eventually, in 2010, I ended up getting a tryout with WWE at the Staples Center, whatever it's called now. The Staples Center. It was December 10th,
Crypto, yeah.
2010. So I did my tryout. I did okay. I think I did okay because they asked me to do this Alberto Del Rio thing. And I got hired on the spot. Um, and then that was my journey in WWE.
Yeah,
They just kind of went, all right, this is your role, go do it. And then I got placed on the live events immediately,
yeah.
and then I was on the road from the beginning.
Yeah, the rest is history.
The
So
rest is history.
backyard wrestling and then going into the real deal. Like, you're
Yeah.
you're actually in the thick of it. I mean, that is talk about a transition differences right there. What can you tell me about your experiences training to be a pro wrestler? Because it is I as you
It,
know, it's hard. It's
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
easy.
I mean, it's again, it's a different time, obviously, where the coaches were it was a different mindset, and there were certain things that they were able to say back then that we can't say anymore.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of aggressive sort of training. Um, and I mean, I learned a lot from it personally, because it forced me to grow up a lot in a lot of
Yes.
senses,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. But I was very grateful for my trainers because my individual trainer at first was this guy named Latigo Blanco, and man, for months he would just beat our ass. But man, I learned so much from that though. I learned so much from him because he would just guide us and move us and wrestle us and then tell us to get up and do it again. And then if I messed up, he would like, all right, get up and do it again, get up and do it again, get up and do it again. Um,
Repetition.
yeah, reps, 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 and then he would force us to do things, and then it was uncomfortable at the time, but once we got out of that comfort zone, it became so easy, and so smooth. So yeah, it was very mentally draining, obviously very physically draining.
Yes.
It beats you up, but I mean, at that point, I've been doing sports my entire life, so I was already aware that I was going to be a part of it. I already had that discipline from playing sports for since I was the age of what 4, 6, whatever.
Hmm.
I've been doing
Young
sports my
kid.
entire life, so So I grew up with that discipline of it's gonna be hard, but you're gonna get out of it whatever you put in.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, no, I'm very grateful for how it was and how we were trained. Um, it was a good time. It was a good experience. And then, uh, yeah, like I said, I did my time with my original trainer, Latio Blanco. And then once I got the blessing from him to go out and explore, I started going to different places throughout LA. So like on Mondays, I would go to him. On Tuesdays, I would go to a different place. On Wednesday, I go to another place. And then on Thursdays, I would go to gymnastics to learn tumbling. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, I was wrestling. But that was my life. That was my life for a whole 2 3 years. It was just straight.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's that discipline of having that passion, and then the obsession, basically, of like I'm gonna make something out of this. Yeah,
Yeah, it's addicting, but it's a
it is. It
positive.
really
But
is.
it's
It's such a
but
high. It's such an adrenaline rush, and it's such a high. Like you said. I think Eddie Guerrero did that promo
hmm
against Brock Lesnar,
yes.
being an addict. That dude,
hmm
like that, the adrenaline from the audience and then being in front of them is so addicting. I wouldn't trade that part for anything.
No, no, and like you said, you got to go all over the world. To
Yeah.
Germany, to Mexico, and then finally you get your big break, your big
hmm
tryout with WWE. Uh, Tell me about that experience. You try out, you get in the company, and then they give you this awesome role.
So I mean, it didn't start off that way. It was more so I ended up working for this promoter, very legendary promoter in Southern California named Jesse Hernandez,
hmm
and it was the first time that I had ever worked for him. A good friend of mine had brought me in to wrestle him, and I think we did well. I thought we did well, and then at the time I had the mask, that red mask,
Yep.
the luchador stuff, and
Yes.
um I think we impressed him, and then Jesse comes up to me afterwards, and then he's like, "Hey," and I'm paraphrasing. Hey, WWE's coming to town. They're looking for luchadors and Latinos. Like about your height, your size. Would you be interested in doing a tryout? And I was like, yeah, of course. Um, and at the time, I was not up to date on the product because I used to work in production and video production.
hmm
So our days were like 16 hours, just to catch up on projects. And then after I was done with my work, I would go to training. So I wasn't up to date on the product, and obviously this is before social media. Um, so I didn't know. So I ended up kind of trying to catch up on what was going on, and I had seen the Alberto promo, but I didn't pay too much attention to it because obviously at that time that wasn't even a thing for me in my mind. So I go and I do my tryout. It's at the Staples Center on August 10th. We get there like around 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever, and then we were wrestling for like 3 4 hours just straight. Um, we did this drills like man in the middle where we just kind of have one person gets their ass beat basically by
hmm
everybody and then
Yep.
kind of trade off. But I at the time, and then actually I just saw my one of my trainers that I'm very grateful for. His name was Gangrel from WWE. He was
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
my trainers before I got
hmm
signed, and I just saw him on Saturday, and I had this chat with him. That one thing he had told me, and then I will always be grateful for. He's like, stay in as much as possible. Don't let them see that you're tired. Um, so then I took that person, I took it to heart. So when we did those drills, anytime that somebody would tag me out, I would catch my breath and I would tag myself back in, and I was hogging the ring, but I kept staying in there, and it was like so exhausting. And then after that, we did matches, and then they did like a little tournament style where they kept getting people that they liked out of each match, not who won, but who they liked, and they just kept putting them up. And at the end, it was myself and this other guy, um, and um, and yeah, so just kind of went from there. And then they asked me some more information afterwards. They had asked me if I was under contract anywhere, and I said no. They had asked me if the opportunity were to present itself, if I'd be willing to relocate to Florida. I was like, yeah, of course. Whatever they needed. So then they left it at that. And then so that night for Raw, they come up to this one guy. They went up to Jesse Hernandez and they had asked him that they were looking for somebody for the next day, like a ring announcing deal. And then Jesse had suggested this other kid. um, yeah, who was the last kid that I wrestled in the little tournament style,
Hmm.
and he did for whatever reason they had asked him, but for whatever reason he said he couldn't make it the next day. He couldn't make it to SmackDown for whatever reason. So then Jesse goes, well, he speaks Spanish. So then they came up to me and they approached me and they had asked if I'd be willing to go to Bakersfield, California the next day for SmackDown to do this ring announcing deal. And I've never done ring announcing before. I didn't even have a tux. But I said yes. So then the next morning I went to a Goodwill Salvation Army, and I got a cheap little suit. And there was a bridal shop store across the street, and I went and got bow ties. So then I went from there and I went to Bakersfield, which is like 2 hours north of LA. I did that whole tryout. I did the thing. I did the first day with Alberto. Um, Vince liked it. They asked me to come back, and then I got offered a contract right after the second attempt.
At this time, they didn't really have like a lot of managers or other
Mm.
kind of personnel alongside the wrestlers. It was just, maybe you had your valets, your female valets here and there, but you didn't really have a lot of managers. But they had you come on board with this new character alongside Alberto Del Rio, and that was just a money deal, man, where you guys were perfectly together.
Well, it also didn't start that way though. I mean, it was just, and then I got to speak to some of the folks in the office, and then that Ricardo part was only supposed to be the one off just for the debut. That
Mm-hmm.
was the only thing I was supposed to be there for. But Vince really liked it, so they kept bringing me back as an extra, and so I was an extra for a couple months. So I kept dressing in the hallways. I kept dressing with the low extra talent, because I wasn't an official talent yet, but they kept bringing me over. Um, so it didn't start off as like a manager. It just started off as the ring announcer, the personal ring announcer. And then as time went on, because I think I was an extra for basically like 3 months until I got the clearance from the medical and then the actual contract. I was basically an extra for like 3 months. Um, and it wasn't until maybe like the fourth or fifth month that I was actually able to like dress in the locker room. It was much later.
Yeah, get
But yeah, I
physical.
was an extra for months until I got the official contract and I was basically invited to dress in the locker room. And then from there, little by little, I started getting more involved with the stuff and the storylines, and then that it came from personal ring announcer to just like a valet to then little by little then manager, and then to eventually wrestling. But it was a slow progressive build to that persona that Ricardo was. Because at first it was just some like dorky ring announcer who, yeah, and yeah.
But the evolution of Ricardo Rodriguez to me is just so fascinating because you were able to take that character and make it mean something, like that whole Alberto Del Rio. Like you were able to, make that work so well. And plus too, I mean, you're able to get, not only physical with Alberto's opponents, but you had some comedic chops as well too. I mean, how did that all come about?
I I mean I don't know exactly when, but I know that the first moment that really there was like two specific moments that I can remember that they had talked to me and they told me that those were pivotal moments. The first one was the first time that I got beat up by Rey Mysterio,
Hmm.
because at the time the only people that I knew that knew that I was a wrestler were my friends, but out of everybody within the company, uh, the guys that were there for my tryout, and then Alberto. That was like those were the only ones that knew I was a wrestler prior, because obviously at that point I had already talked to Alberto, but nobody else knew that I had spent years on the independence. They all just thought that I was coming in as a ring announcer. So then the first time that Rey Mysterio, beat my ass, and then he gave me a 619, and I sold it. That was one of those where I got asked after that if I had been trained before. I was like, yeah, I've been wrestling for X amount of years, 4 years at that point. Um, so then they started giving me more situations, more like physical uh, situations. And then the second one was this promo that we did. It was myself, Alberto, Miz, Alex Riley, R Truth, Rey Mysterio, and then it was the timing that I cut off Miz, and then I gave Alex Riley a drop kick. And then those two were the two main pivotal moments that they're like, hey, we can do more stuff with them. We can get more physical with them. And it just went from there.
Yeah, I mean, just you were so over with the fans, and the crowd loved hearing your voice every time you were about to announce Alberto to the ring. And you got to work with so many people
Yeah.
over the course of your career there. Do you remember any pieces of advice you got while you were in WWE from any legends or other personnel that kind of stuck with you, and still to this day you took away from that, from your time there?
There, yeah, oh, yeah. I got. I mean, the learning trees that I got to sit under, man, just amazing. And then just the brains that I was able to like pick, between Regal, because I used to do the tryouts with Regal, so I would sit next to Regal when he was doing his speeches to the extras. Um, Regal, Arn Anderson, Malenko. Malenko to me still, and I'll still always call him my WWE dad because Malenko took care of us, and then I learned so much from Malenko. Um, Jamie Noble was another one that we got to be super lucky to learn from. Obviously, Triple H and Vince, getting to learn from Vince directly was just amazing in itself, and then how he would break stuff down, explain things to us. Because the hows of wrestling are easy, it's the whys of wrestling that's always gonna be hard to comprehend and to grasp. And then, but as far as like the actual wrestling folks, I mean, we got to work with everybody, all the top guys at the time. Obviously we spent this whole time with Randy Orton, with Cena, with Edge, Christian, Punk, Taker. We got to spend time with Ray, Edge. So as far as like specific things that they said, I don't know if there's anything in particular that really stands out to me in particular, but there was a whole array of different things that they all said that made sense to the situation that was happening at the time. There was one time where I screwed up. I told him I missed my cue, and then I got yelled at by Edge. Um, and but it wasn't. And I guess he was frustrated. He was frustrated. I get it. He was mad. I get it because I screwed up. I totally screwed up because I missed my cue. Um, but I learned a valuable lesson that way by missing my cue. And that's something that like I got to apply because it happened again months later with a different person where the same situation happened. But because I had already replayed that situation in my head immediately of what had happened with Edge, I knew how to like fix it and get back on track and then not miss the cue. Um, but yeah, no, like, and then I got to learn so much from Paul Heyman. I got to learn so much from Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer was such a sweetheart, and
Hmm.
he was one of those that I would do things on TV, and then he would message me later on and say, "Hey, that was good," or "Hey, that wasn't that good," or "Your expressions were not, like do this next time, or don't do that, or try this." Um, but it wasn't like he wasn't there to like downplay me either. It was constructive, and he
Hmm.
wanted me to do better. And then I will forever be grateful for Paul Bear. 'Cause, yeah, he was such a kind heart, and he always wanted to have people get better. It was such a dream come true, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, geeking out when a legend like him just comes back. I mean, that's got to feel good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, you've got a story you wanted to share with me on the podcast about a struggle that you went through in your life that
Yeah.
you were able to overcome. Tell me about that.
So, I mean, I got to experience the highest of highs of life when it came to, the lifestyle that we had and the travel, the quote unquote rock and roll lifestyle, the fame, the fortune, the women, the booze, the drugs, the ego, the inflated ego. I got to experience all of that, and there's a huge part of that time frame in my life where I'm not proud of it because how much I let that win me over. Um, and then when I left WWE, I fell into this huge depression, and the depression led into the drugs, and then the alcohol, the women, and it just became a cycle, a never ending cycle. And then it didn't help too because of depression, the insomnia. So then the insomnia would lead into the alcohol would lead into like the drugs will lead into like more insomnia, and it just became a circle. mixed that with all the depression, the concussions didn't help either. It's a whole array of things, but they were all one right after the other, and it was a continuous cycle. And I went on a very terrible bender for years, to the point where I lost it all. And it's an unfortunate part of my life, but um, I got to experience it, and because of the help that I was able to get, I was able to go and well now here in Lancaster, I was able to attend a rehab center called Blueprints for Addiction Recovery, um, and I did my time there. I had amazing counselors, and I got to learn, how to love myself. Um, and I'm still working on it because yeah, I'm still working on it. I spent many years hating myself that it's not something that you just say one day, hey, I'm not that person anymore. I love myself now. Well, I mean, yeah, I care about myself more, but it's still an everyday process, and it's an everyday battle. From the moment I wake up, then I have those intrusive thoughts about myself every now and then, to where I can kind of say, hey, I don't need that in my life. I have to be grateful for what I have, instead of being pitiful and being depressed about what I don't have. Be grateful for the things that I do, and for the people that I do have. I have a lot of things that a lot of folks wish that they had. I still have my parents, I still have my sister, and I have great folks around me. I'm healthy, and I'm forever grateful for that. There may be things that are going to be happening in my life where, they're huge bummers, but they're out of my control. The only thing that I can control is how I react. So just a form of expressing gratitude has been a huge lifesaver, honestly. Um, because looking back during that time when I was in my low, and I had lost it all, and then the only thing that I had that was to fill that void, well, like I said, the drugs and then the alcohol. Um, at a certain point, I didn't want to be around people. I just wanted to get wasted and to get high, um, uh, and that's all I knew, and that's all I wanted. And at that point, the depression kicked in even more because people were trying to help me, but then I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't, because to me, I was so closed off in my own brain that I didn't want to hear anybody else that was trying to reach out to help me. I just wanted to be left alone. Um, and but no, but I went through a whole, seriously, almost, yeah, 8 years. I don't know, like 5 6 years, 5 6 years or so, of just straight. No, I'm lying, because it went even longer. It wasn't until after I left WWE that it really kicked in even more, because I had nothing to do. Um, I didn't have responsibilities anymore. At least in my head, I didn't have responsibilities. And then, yeah, like I said, I just went on a downhill, and then unfortunately, I lost everything. And most importantly, I lost my reputation. I lost, my I lost connections that should never have been lost because of my addiction, and I don't blame them for leaving at all. I don't. Ultimately, it was me doing me. It was just me being my own worst enemy. But I'm grateful that now I've been 2 years clean and sober, a little over 2 years. I live here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I did my rehab. I go to meetings. I go and I speak at meetings. Um, I got to open up my own business, and if it wasn't for the people that I have around me, my good friend Christopher Dweisbach, who's my co-owner of Three Legacies Wrestling. Um, I'm grateful for him and all the people around me, Bobby, and Ronnie, and um, I'm excited for them because they're enjoying this journey with me, and they're a part of my journey. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful, honestly, for where I'm at and then what we're building. And I'm grateful for the sobriety that has allowed me to enjoy all this fully, consciously. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's life is all about choices, good and bad. We all make mistakes, throughout our lives, but it's up to us to really learn from those mistakes and pick ourselves back up and try again and to prevent ourselves from making those mistakes again. And by you talking with me, and standing here today, that's a testament to you being able to overcome all those obstacles, overcome all those demons. I mean, you certainly have been through a lot, over the course of your life and your career. It's not easy, to pick yourself back up, when you have a loss, like, losing your job and having to, start all over, what am I going to do? And so by you taking care of yourself and taking those steps to help yourself, live a healthy lifestyle and to see where you are today, I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
There's this comedian from back in the day. His name was Bill Hicks, and Bill Hicks had this sequence or this bit that in a nutshell it will basically say that life is like a roller coaster, like a ride in an amusement park. It has its ups and downs, and round and round is very brightly colored and it's very loud. Um, and people when they get on it, sometimes they think it's real, but it's just a ride. And ultimately, when we get off this ride, we have to realize that it's a choice of how we go on to perceive it, basically between fear and love. The eyes of fear will shut you out from everything, and then you'll be in a very terrible state of mind. But the eyes of love will open you and open up your inner and outer consciousness. But it's all just a choice between fear and love, and I'm grateful that I no longer choose fear, and then I choose love.
Yeah, I mean that's the only choice you have, the positive one. And so now you've got your own wrestling school, Three Legacies Wrestling. How did that school come about? What got you interested in starting up your own school?
So after I left WWE, I was living in Orlando at the time, and I was helping run a school at the time. And when I left there, I ended up going to San Antonio, Texas, and I was helping run an amazing school, hybrid pro wrestling, hybrid school wrestling, excuse me. They're in San Antonio. They are fantastic, and I'm grateful for Chris Marvel and everybody there, the opportunities, and so I got to spend time there. And then before I went to San Antonio, excuse me, I got to spend time opening up a school in India. So I spent 6 months in India, and I opened up a school there, and it became a whole thing. So there was no independent scene at the time. It was the Great Khali School, but I was the one running it. Um, and at the time, I started with about maybe 20 kids or so. And then by the end of it, I think total that we had was about 100 throughout the whole day or throughout all the classes. It was about 100 close to. Um, and I'm grateful that after I left and the people that went after me, we built an entire independent scene in India, which did not exist before. So we built that, and some of those guys were hired by WWE. They were on TV for a good while, and it became a thing. After that, I went to Australia for a little bit. I taught in Australia for a little bit. I went to England. I spent time in England. I did time in Germany. I did time in Spain, um, down in Mexico, and then I COVID happened, so then everything shut down, right? So everything shut down, and then I got a call from somebody in Cairo, Egypt. So then I went to Cairo, and I spent almost a year, close to a year in Cairo, um, trying to open up a school. But unfortunately, because of COVID, it was a constant start, stop, start, stop, start, stop.
Mhm.
So as bummed out as I am that it didn't come to where I wanted it to, there's still a huge, rich wrestling love and passion over there that I wish, if given the opportunity, either myself or somebody that I can trust that can go out there and then make it happen. Because there is a huge market for that over there. All that whole Arabic
Middle
side of the
East.
world has so much passion and love for it, as has been very evident when WWE goes over there. And the people, man, are just so beautiful and amazing and loving, and I got to learn so much being in Egypt and seeing the culture, and I fell in love with it, honestly.
Yeah, I
Oh yeah,
mean,
so anyways, so then so then I come back to the US. I come back to the US. Unfortunately, I fell in my fell back into my BS. um I ended up in San Antonio. I ended up reaching out to get help. I got flown up to Lancaster, up here where I'm at now, by Chris. And in our one of our chats, I had told my story, and then he goes like, "Well, why don't you just open up your own school?" Um, and I was like, "Ah, come on, man, whatever." Um, he's like, "No, think about it. Let's figure out how we can make it happen, and we'll go from there." So and I thought of like the hows. Again, the hows are easy. The hows we can make this happen. The whys. Why would I want to open up my own school? Can I open up my own school? So we worked out the logistics, and then a couple months later, we got the paperwork done, and then I opened up my own school because I've been for years I've ran other people's schools, but they were never mine. So now I have my own brand under my own flag, and this is all of me. So I'm grateful, but that's kind of how it came about. Like it was more of just a Chris asking, "Why don't you just open up your school?"
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's turned out really well. I mean, you got a lot of people, like you, as you mentioned, you got several people that have graduated that have gone on to WWE, bigger and better things. I'm sure you give them the same advice that you were given by your trainers, and I'm sure you've worked out some stuff where you've talked to them and shown them the ropes,
Yeah,
so to
yeah, yeah.
speak.
No, of course. And then obviously, I mean, I can connect with them through experience, so I can tell them all the fortunate things that I've done, and I can also tell them about all the unfortunate things that I've done, and then the mistakes to avoid. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't understand about our parents until I don't have kids that I know of, but so I don't have my own kids, but I have kids, so I have a whole bunch of them. I have like 20 some of them here. Um, so I didn't understand this about our parents, why they would try and bullguard or like tell us not to do certain things. They would tell us, "Hey, don't do that. Don't be stupid." And then we would go, well, what do you know? You're old. No, yeah, that's why, because they've already experienced it.
Hmm.
So they've already experienced a lot of stuff in their lives that are going to be similar to experiences that we're going to experience. So I went through all that. I did all that stupid stuff, so you don't have to. So you don't have to go through all the heartache. So you don't have to go through all that depression. So you don't have to go through all that anger. This is part of being a coach, is guiding you through the best possible steps to guarantee you the closest little bit to success that can possibly be attained, to your abilities. And then if your abilities are not enough, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you to do even more, so you can get there. And I will try to find a way to make you understand how to get to that point. Um, but those are the perks of being a coach and a trainer for so long. I got to experience so many years of guiding people to the best of my ability, and every single time I learn something new. So, and I take all that time that I spend overseas, and in different places, and training people who we don't speak the same language. So I had to find ways to make them understand, and I can take that experience and apply it to these guys here. Now, granted, everybody has a different definition of what making it is. For some people, it may be WWE. For some people, it may be just being able to perform in front of their kids here locally. For some, it may be Japan. For some, it may be whatever it may be. So everybody has a different definition of what making it is. And then that's what my job is, to help them, guide them through that process, and not only make them good wrestlers, but also make them good, stronger people.
What is it about being a coach and being a trainer that gives you the most joy?
There's a couple. There's a couple that I've seen here, especially because this is more recent, so it's a lot more fresher in my mind. Um,
Mhm.
there's a bit that I enjoy seeing. In example one, when I tell them something, like they make a mistake, and then I try to correct them, and then they apply the next time, and then it just clicks in their head, and then they're like, "Oh, that's why he told me to do that." That's one. Um, when when I hear them, when I hear the more experienced students uh, teach stuff to the newer kids, and then I can hear them and I can hear me and them, so they repeat stuff that I said to them, and then you can see that it clicks into the newer student's head. So those are moments of like the haha, that makes sense. So when that light bulb turns on people's heads, that to me is beautiful. um Another one too, that's it's super proud dad moment, is when some of these guys, and then the girls, they go out and they wrestle somewhere else, and then I'll get like a message back from the promoter that they had worked with. They're like, "Hey man, they're very respectful, they're good kids, they helped, and you're doing a good job over there." So because ultimately they're also a representation of myself too. So that's a huge proud moment when I feel, all right, those are my kids, and I'm proud of them, and they're gonna go a long way so long as we just keep them on the right path. Um, but they have that respect of the business and they have that respect for themselves. Um, those are very proud moments, honestly.
Yeah, that's got to feel really good, to see your own kids go on and be superstars, whether it is for a major promotion or a local independent one. And really awesome to see that Three Legacies Wrestling has taken off, has blown up, and it's going to continue to do great things in the future. So this has
It
been really
will.
good.
Oh yeah, it will. We've only been operating for it's not even 2 years yet. Um, it's a year and a half. It's gonna be 2 years in September. September. Um, and I'm grateful again. It's just it all comes back to the community. We have a community that's behind us, and to see that is very rewarding as well too. A few things, but one of the things that I tell the kids here is when they sign up is that we do a lot of community stuff. So just get ready for that because we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff with the community. We're going to be doing a lot of charity work, and a lot of stuff within out there, like outreach programs. And a big reason for that though is because when I was going through my stuff, I used a lot of resources to help me. There's a lot of community efforts that were out and about when I was in my my downside in my life.
Hmm.
And if it wasn't for a lot of these groups that were giving assistance and giving aid, who knows where I would have been. Um, and so I'll forever be grateful for something like that, for programs that are willing to help others. Um, and then this is my way of giving back to those programs because those programs helped me.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm proud of that, and I'm proud that we're able to give back to a community that's giving us so much and that's so supportive to us. Um, and that's it's something that's near and dear to my heart because I do want to build a stronger community. I want to build something that I can say, hey, we were a part of that. We helped, deliver 600 pounds of food for during this one show, one event. The community, our community, brought in 600 pounds of food for one show, and we were able to distribute that to the food hub. Um, I'm grateful for stuff like that. I'm grateful that we're able to reach out to addiction recovery programs because again, that those are the programs that helped me. So I'm giving back to the program that helped me. Um, to be able to provide entertainment for folks, family friendly for the kids, the parents, for the parents to come and bring their kids for 3 4 hours to just get lost and to get entertained, and then to have a special bonding moment between father and son or father and daughter or family mom and dad whatever you know um,
All ages.
all ages. So that's stuff that I'm happy to be a part of and that I want to do because, like I said, I'm giving back to programs that helped me when I was in my rut.
Yeah. And you've been able to take that and make lemons out of lemonade.
Yeah, yeah. No, thankfully, it's just and it's a whole. It's none of this is an individual effort. So a lot of this, all not all of this, all of this is stuff that it's all of us putting it together, and then it's getting outsourcing to outside folks to help us too, so we can give to others, right? So none of this is an individual effort, but I'm grateful for everything that we have and that we're able to provide.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, giving back to the community. That's what
Mhm.
your promotion in school is about. That's what our podcast is about. And Ricardo, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to come on here, tell your story. It means a lot to me, to the listeners and the viewers on YouTube that are watching this. Where can people find more about you and your school? How they can get in touch with you? Where can people find more about you?
The number one is go through our Facebook at type out Three Legacies Wrestling. Uh, if you check us out on YouTube, you can check out all our events, see what we're about. We have a lot of extra content. We're always looking for, we have cool stuff on the members only side of it too. So just same thing, Three Legacies Wrestling. Those are the two main. You can go to our website again, Three Legacies Wrestling. And then from there, you can just kind of see what I'm doing too. I'm working for MLW. I'm working a lot of independent dates coming up. So yeah, but the number one thing is just Three Legacies Wrestling, man. That's where you can find whatever I'm doing because that's where my focus is.
All right. Well, Ricardo, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.